I guess another point I was going to bring up about this issue is, there's a lot of Wolfsbane stuff in this, and Rain gets a lot of development. So maybe the two of you should fill me in on this, because I was very
I cannot.
unfamiliar with a lot of the lore here.
I'm a big fan of Wolfsbane, but I have almost no idea what they're talking about.
Okay, I'm a fucking try. So here we go. In the most condensed fashion that I can think to break this down. Okay, so once again, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a trend, we are picking up with where a character was last seen at the end of Peter David's last X Factor run, which would have wrapped up, circa 2014, 2015. So yeah, we're looking at, a minute ago, when we last had... Okay, so at the end of the previous volume of X Factor, back during the wild everyone is Satan in hell conclusion, Reigns, as guardian werewolf god Antichrist baby, was killed by the then soulless strong guy to steal the throne of the underworld.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of School for Gifted Youngsters, releasing bi-weekly lately because unless 3 comics come out every week, we've got to wait until another set come out to have a full episode for you. We have a very full one this week, 6 issues, and I am joined as always by Ian.
Howdy, school kids, all our students, all our teachers.
And by Marius.
Hello, hello, hello.
And I would say these issues all have a kind of a theme to them, which is like sort of breakdowns in the order of the Reign of X. Maybe just temporary ones. We'll see. And we'll get into those as we go through the issues. We are not going to talk about the breakdown in the stock market, which is what everyone's talking about. Those of you who are GameStop fans, I'm sure you already know about this. What we do want to talk about before these issues is something much more important than the stock market, which is the current election to determine who the last member of the X-Men will be.
Yes!
Of course, most of this election is happening in-universe. All but one member will be decided by the actual fictional subjects, citizens of Krakoa. But one member is being decided from this Earth 1000 whatever. I don't know. Which number is our Earth?
I couldn't off the top of my head say which number the real world Earth was assigned, but I'm pretty sure it was at some point.
It was. I read it on the wiki. I guess both DC and Marvel did that because it's kind of fun to imagine. Right?
It's fun, yeah. And it's fun to vote on who will be in the X-Men, and we each have a vote, and we would like to urge you to vote and to talk about our votes. Why don't we hear from Marius first?
So I will be voting for Armor, who's been, as some of you might know, has been one of my favorite of the younger bunch of mutant X-Men characters for a while. I was really happy to see her in New Mutants. That being said, we had our fair share of criticisms of New Mutants and how she was handled in that. I've been a fan of hers ever since she was introduced in 2004's Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon. I think it was one of the first issues of that gifted arc. I don't know. She's a great character, I think. She's very determined. And I like that about her. And she's just a sympathetic character overall. And I think she would make a great addition to a main X-Men team. Because that's always been one of her main motivating drives. She, more than anything else, she wanted to be taken seriously as an X-Men from the get-go. And she has been an X-Men member before. And I just think it would be great to have some Asian American and also sort of younger representation on the main team. Because, let's face it, like a lot of the mainline X-Men team are gonna be like white 30-somethings, right?
Magic will be the youngest, I'm sure. And it'd be nice to have someone younger than Magic, I agree. Or Cable, which sort of he's not young, who knows. More on that soon.
That's complicated, yeah.
Yeah, I like Armor a lot. I love her power set. I love that she has psychic powers that aren't mind reading, like astral powers that are tank powers. But I'm not voting for Armor. Who are you voting for, Ian?
On the subject of old white guy X-Men, I have to concede that I voted for Banshee, and I'm not even sorry about it, because...
You're part of the problem, Ian.
I'm part of the problem, but you see, I love this character. I'm a huge fan of the character of Banshee, which probably only makes sense if you are, an OG X-Men fan, since he hasn't appeared regularly in a title in like 20 years. He's only showed up as a zombie because he's been dead since Deadly Genesis, and then he got fake better, then dead again, and I think that happened at least twice, right? Doesn't matter. That's not the Banshee that I voted for. The Banshee that I voted for is the Banshee who has been part of the X-Men world since the 60s, first appearing as, your typical, brainwashed villain, then joining the all-new, all-different team in their raid on Krakoa back in Giant Size X-Men issue 1. He's part of the same classic lineup as Wolverine and Storm and Nightcrawler and Colossus. The Banshee that I'm at least as well acquainted with, though, is the Banshee who was the team dad of Generation X, being the leader and mentor to my generation of teenage X-Men in training. There's been like 4 generations since, but yeah, 90s kid here. And yeah, Banshee, because he's not doing anything right now, and really, it's been a minute since he did anything.
One could even call him the divorced dad of Generation X. He sleeps on the couch in one very memorable issue for me, an issue that I like a lot. Yeah, I'm definitely down with Banshee. Ian is voting with his heart, like many Americans voting for the guy with the hottest smile. People all up and down the spectrum of American population just do that, they say it's why JFK won, right? And JFK was a good president.
On the record, voted for Banshee partly because I think he's hot. It's true.
Yeah. I am also voting for someone to whom I'm attracted. That is Boom Boom. And also someone, I think, younger than Magic, though it's hard to say for sure. I just love Boom Boom's, fourth wall breaking energy in recent issues. Like Boom Boom fulfilling this role where other members are all planning and being really in universe and concerned, and she's just fuck this, and she tells them they're ridiculous and blows things up. She reminds me of Brock Sampson in Venture Brothers, just kind of standing in for the reader a little bit with a good sense of humor. I just want to see that in more, so that's why I'm voting for Boom Boom.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see her as well. The same goes for Banshee, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Tabitha Smith is 30 years of just walking dumpster fire, and I've got to say that has made her a favorite X-Men character as Boom Boom, Meltdown, Dr. Madam Explode, whatever she's calling herself any given run or issue.
She's got to be called Boomer.
She's got to be Boomer. Yeah, in 2021, she's got to be Boomer.
Then they can say "Okay, Boomer" in a panel.
I also, it's past time for a Krakoan, Boom Boom, Cannonball, Sunspot reunion. I have no idea when those characters were last on the page together, and they have a history that would be interesting to see updated now that Sam's a dad and Bobby's a space gigolo.
Space Gigolo and Space Elon Musk. We'll have a lot to say about...
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Does
Into
that make
those guys.
Deathbird Grimes? Wild.
Yes, it does make Deathbird Grimes. That's good. All right, so that'll be at the end of the episode. We'll talk about their antics in space. But since that's the most recent issue in the chronology. But we will start from a little over a week ago with Cable 7, which was not at all what I expected. I thought he was going to fight Venom symbiotes and get taken over. And instead, it's like this issue could have come out over a month ago, you know? Like, it's like just
when it was
straight...
originally scheduled to be released.
I see.
It's, so it is kind of a weird whiplash having... Yeah, we've seen Cable in 2 issues of Sword since we last saw him in an issue of his own title. So, yeah, it's this wild flashback to the story before the crossover, picking up right at the end of the crossover, which feels like a weirdly long time ago.
It's sort of bizarre too, because it's about this like immediate like situation that has to be investigated about these like mutant kidnappings.
It's like, oh yeah, there were
like,
missing babies.
Yeah, it's
We've
like
been
the
playing with
kidnappers
swords for
just
months, but babies.
Yeah,
the
and they
kidnappers just like like lay low for a couple of months so the X-Men could finish their Araco business.
And then they meet back up. They meet back up with the Philly cops, who I do like as kind of like comic relief, but then they're like, no, you're not moving fast enough, Philly cops. We don't have time for your like, you know, beholdenness to civilian authority or other things that are a key part of American government, right? Instead, they're like, no, you waited a month for us to play with swords, and now, who knows what you were doing, but now you just have to like rush with us. Yeah.
So cops aren't reckless enough, is what this book is saying.
It is, yeah. Well, they don't have telepathy.
That's true.
Yeah,
Thank God.
We do have Sister Rachel around for this issue, along for this adventure, and I see in the opening titles they don't even attempt to call her Prestige. That one might be dead.
Good, that's fine with me. But one thing I don't like about this, I do like the art a lot, but I think both visually and writing-wise, Rachel just bears no resemblance to her like lead role, like her main role as a member of X Factor. Like in the previous appearances of Rachel in main X-Men, alongside Cable or Scott or both, she doesn't have much to say at all. And then now she does, but she's just like not the same person as in X Factor.
She's more grumpy in X Factor, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's just a mean dog mom, you know.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe if she really does actually feel like an older sister to this Cable, which seems strange to me, then maybe she acts differently around him, but I just want a little more consistency. I think
makes sense though to some extent.
I think X Factor is doing a good job of adding more substance and specificity to some of these female characters who could have been interchangeable for so long, and that they should run with that instead of just turning them back into like generally nice people, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Rachel doesn't get a lot of characterization at all in this issue. She's there for her powers and because she's Cable's sister, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and she sort of, she appears for that one issue, and I am happy to see some interactions in the Summers clan. I've liked all these interactions, and she tells him to go talk to Hope at the end of the issue after they have saved the 5 out of the 10 babies, And it's like, well, do we have like another buddy cop issue coming then with another Summers relationship? No, apparently we do not.
This is
Instead-
actually
Switch.
I was
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and it's only now occurring to me that the reason that he's supposed to talk to Hope is that Hope has had like a very special connection to Cable, obviously, but I wasn't even making that association because young Cable and old Cable are so different as characters. Have we actually seen Hope and young Cable on screen? Or not on screen, but on panel before, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, if I was her, I would.
Not since the beginning of our current run. I don't know if they've ever been in the same place. And given that
So
old
wild.
Cable was kind of Hope's dad, and
Right.
young Cable kind of killed Hope's
Exactly.
dad,
Yeah.
it should be awkward.
It should be.
It would be, yeah.
Hopefully, it will be.
On the subject of awkward, it looks like the team up that we have to look forward to as we go after a classic question mark X-Force villain is the equally 90s and extreme Domino.
Oh god, yeah.
Which, like,
she's-
that.
Because she's not doing anything in X-Force right now, to be fair.
She's not, and apparently, I guess she's not dating Colossus after all, which raises the question of whether she's gonna, like, cradle rob
No.
young Cable, which, like, not that is indeed weird, as they say in the last panel of the issue. Like, how much older than young Cable is she, and how much does she mind that he killed old Cable, with whom she used to have a relationship?
So she shouldn't mind, I guess. I feel like if he's like a Zoomer, she would be like a millennial, right?
Yeah, not far off, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. It's gonna be weird.
It's kind of weird.
The weirdest.
But he would be like I don't know if he'd be like a young Zoomer, but he wouldn't be like an old Zoomer.
No,
Like,
I
I
mean
feel-
he's been dating, like, he's been going on dates with cuckoos and shit, you know? Like,
Right.
Yeah, hanging out with Armor and Pixie, so he's, definitely a teenager.
Right.
Where Domino is a woman in her 30s.
who's like already had relationships with like 100-plus-year-old Wolverine, Daddy Cable,
God.
you know, they like she's definitely like a woman, you know.
It's also like that whole scene was a bit weird to me when he was talking to Scott, and Scott was like, like doing the advertisement for the X-Men vote, and he's like, we're putting together a team, and then he's like, all right, that's a good idea, I should put together a team as well. It's like those movie cliches, right?
It is, yeah.
Putting together a team.
I guess he will. Maybe that means Deadpool will be back. That'd be fine with me, I guess. The introduction of Strife, to which Ian alluded earlier, in a kind of like a snippet of thought that Rachel takes out of the mind of the head cultist. Like, when I saw that, like, I just wrote into my notes, Strife, lol. Like, there's I feel like...
Yeah, because he's the same with the externals and everything that was extreme about early 90s Liefeld X-Force. Yeah, Strife is a mood.
And he's come
Yeah,
back
for
so many times, and I feel like the whole plot arc in which Cable was saving Hope from Bishop, and Strife and Apocalypse were both involved. There were a lot of problems with that. I did still like it a lot. To me, it just kind of put Strife to rest. Like, that was like enough Strife after that. You know, that was like a good kind of ending for Strife, I thought.
And I
We
mean,
have
he's
had
been
sufficient.
back before, between then and now.
I'm sure.
It's just
He never.
I don't
never,
think
like,
he's that great a
matters much.
character.
No, he
You
just
don't say.
he just comes in for like 2 issues every so often. He never has like a real kind of like big agenda or any kind of like leadership role among other.
But he's an evil
villains.
clone. Why would you suggest that an evil clone in a giant helmet is a shallow character?
All right, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe they'll convince him to come to Krakoa. We gotta race through these issues. And
That's fun. You want to press on to our
Let's do it.
let's take on X-Force, I guess.
X-Force, which it sounds like we have some differing opinions on. I like this issue of X-Force a lot, and I thought it was much better than the last and back on track generally for the comic. What did you all think?
I thought it was all right. Again, I told this to the two of you back before when we started recording. I do appreciate the art. I think it's beautifully done, but I will admit that I am kind of, after 17 issues, I am kind of tired of the bioweapon body horror angle to it all. It's just, it's the same stuff all over again, and I feel like it's not being made intriguing to me. Mm-hmm. Not really. I mean, the Rao and Beast scene was nice, I guess, but it's one of, I don't know, how many, dozens of scenes that we've seen in this book that are just, exactly this. They're presented with some sort of bioweapon, and Beast goes into full Machiavellian mode about it. It's just
the scene with Reyes and Beast, you mean?
yes.
Yeah, I liked her a lot. I thought, okay, one, she's using her powers. Finally, she's using her powers, right? And in a way that is in service to her professional role in the community. Two, she tells Beast what to do, which somebody needs to do. Xavier ain't doing it. Nobody's doing it. And, for her to actually, take a leadership role in X-Force would be really good. Someone's got to fucking... Wolverine doesn't do it either. He just does what Beast tells him to do, basically. Someone's got.
Sure, but both Jean and Wolverine kind of sort of stood up to Beast, and then he just ignored it, and it's
always just kind of sort of. It's just kind of well, I guess Beast suddenly being a sociopathic supervillain is just Hank being Hank. Wah wah. Oh, that poor man's Lex Luthor bent on world domination. That lovable scamp. Yeah, that's the thing that I cannot stand and hate to read in this book is this version of Beast. It's not even my inability to square this Hank McCoy with the character whose previous 50-odd years of adventures I have frequently read and enjoyed. It's that other characters who have known Hank for much of that half-century publishing history act like this is business as usual.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. It's you can do interesting stuff with that, and we've seen interesting stuff with that sort of Beast storyline. There was a whole anniversary issue. I think it was Uncanny X-Men 600 by Brian Michael Bendis. That was just the entirety of the X-Men holding an intervention for Beast because he's just gone completely off the rails. And then in All New X-Men 25, it was, I think, there was a big collaborative issues of a lot of great artists. There was basically a Beast talking to the Watcher, which, by the way, that never happens. If the Watcher is going to talk to you and tell you fucked up, then you've really fucked up.
Mm-hmm. And things have gone a bit off.
But so it's that stuff is so exciting to me. But in this book, again, as you said, Ian, it's just treated as business as usual. I think the route that Percy could go with this is to treat it sort of they treated Shaw in Marauders, and I don't mean to say that they should kill or whatever or disfigure Beast or whatever. I'm just saying, present us with some sort of cul-de-sac or power struggle where Beast does fucked up shit and the other characters are trying to figure out what to do about it, but they feel like they sort of kind of can't because of the power structure of who they're working for. And then it's but it's more emotionally complicated than that because Beast is still one of their oldest friends. That I would be interested in seeing, but I feel like this book isn't doing that, and it's just sort of repetitive about it.
Yeah, instead what we get is that the X-Men's carelessness has killed hundreds of people and turned them into plant zombies for, the second or third time in this book? Because the X-Men are competent heroes who we're supposed to like?
Yeah. I mean, long-time listeners will know that frequently hazard guesses about what is going on with Beast and when it will be resolved and how. And the longer it goes on, the more we just start to think that there is no resolution in mind here, and that this is just Beast, and that's not satisfying storytelling, to be honest.
I don't think this is Dark Beast.
No, but
or that
he's
I had a theory that it was some sort of Russian Manchurian candidate,
right.
But it's been a while since we had anything there. To be fair, there are like 5 active storylines in this book, only 2 or 3 of which show up in any given issue, and none of which have been resolved to date.
It's just very hard to follow this book, even though it feels like the same stuff keeps happening all over again. And not to be too mean to this book, but I don't even remember like what happened to the Russian stuff, or if it even was in this book.
It might have been the other one,
right?
Given the fact that we flip-flopped storylines a couple of times between X-Force and Wolverine.
When Mikhail showed up, that was in this book, right?
It was.
I think so.
It was.
Did that ever lead up to anything?
It will. There's no way it won't. And
it was before the crossover, and that's not the first thing we're doing. Instead, we're having, the X-Men accidentally made plant zombies. A story that we have literally already read in this title and didn't like the first time.
But it's also like, if we have trouble following this storyline, then like what about like more casual readers who aren't going to pick up, right? Who aren't going to pick up like every other X book, or maybe that makes it easier. I don't know.
Okay, some other things I liked about it. I love.
Yeah, let's get to the good things. There actually are. Once we get over the hump of Beast in this book is awful, and the X-Men don't come across as very good at anything. When we get to our actual undersea adventure, there are nice things to say.
Yeah, I love like a deep ocean aesthetic. I love the game Subnautica. This reminded me very much of it. I think the art on the undersea creatures was presented well. The sort of thematics of like a undersea leviathan being like an evil god, whether it really is or not, but being perceived that way. And then Namor coming along. I love Namor. Anytime Namor.
The motherfucking Submariner.
Namor was really good in this.
Yeah. I just always like Namor every time he appears.
I'm still confused by Namor because he was written to be so important as like a strategic ally in like international affairs sort of stuff back when he was talking to Jean a lot in X-Men Red. And so it's sort of confusing to me that now he would be so opposed to the project of Krakoa, especially he has a track record of being sort of like a high-ranking, very important player in mutant societies and islands, right? He was like they're called the Extinction Team back on Utopia.
Oh, yes, yeah. And he was in the Illuminati. He's a high-ranking player in all of Marvel Comics.
For sure.
Yeah, but he's one of Marvel's... I think he's actually Marvel's oldest published character, technically.
Right.
He is, yeah.
I didn't read X-Men Red, most of it, but I think that the impression I get from Hoxpox was that, like, yes, Jean was doing all this stuff to, like, appeal to humans, to have peace between humans and mutants, and it did, and I guess in X-Men Red he was kind of on board with that, but then things took like a complete turn with Hoxpox. Like, instead now we have like an independent mutant nation state, not necessarily a bad thing, but it really is like lording over the world, right? And like he definitely doesn't like that. He's always wanted independence, right, for his kingdom. That's a real clear through line with Namor all along.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Also, I guess Forge is officially part of this book now.
He has been for some time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. I actually I like Forge in this book. He's, kind
He's
of
fun.
a douche, but everybody's kind of a douche, and at least Forge is supposed to be kind of a douche.
Yeah, I mean, Forge has always been kind of an asshole. And I'm glad to have him on here rather than on X-Men. I hope he doesn't win for the X-Men vote. Again,
Forge
I hope.
isn't gonna win.
No, he's not.
He'll just continue to be in like every book a little bit as the like cue to everyone else's James Bond. You know, that's a fine role for him.
The tech guy. That's okay.
People who are not only longtime listeners but are such devoted fans that they are following the live tweets of the X-Men medieval role-playing game on our Twitter will know that I am playing Forge in that, and so of course I'm partial to Forge. Another character I'm partial to in this issue specifically is Kid Omega, Quentin Quire, who the dynamic in which he's just dying every issue is over, and we have a new arc here, right? And one reason I do expect Mikhail Rasputin's stuff to matter again is that he is also involved in that like whatever Mikhail did when he had Kid Omega for a moment before he died and was resurrected will come into play, and so I'm glad to have some kind of like changing personality for him rather than just repetition.
For sure. No, I like that as well. Kid Omega, I remember from the Wolverine and the X-Men days, obviously. I feel like he's decidedly less childish.
Yeah, exactly. He's grown up a little bit. Still, aggressive, still kind of like indignant, but growing up a little bit.
That's fine, yeah. Baby steps, right?
Yeah, got himself a girlfriend, which earns him a nice homosocial pat on the back from Wolverine and Forge, because heterosexuality is important, y'all.
Yeah, well, being happy for people and their good relationships is important. And I think it's interesting the question of whether Phoebe did some like mind trick, like did she like implant a kind of determination in him to fight harder? That could be...
I don't think so. Like he's a telepath himself, right?
True, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Our Quentin is an Omega mutant. He shouldn't be,
susceptible,
jobbed and murdered left, right, and center to the extent that he has been in this book.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they seem to have recognized that the joke ran its course. At the same time, having had that be the lay of the land up till this point, it actually made me, kind of invested in not seeing Quentin eaten by sea monsters this issue, because Quentin is also actually enjoyable in this book, since, again, he's supposed to be a dick.
Yeah, and he's good comic relief. And we are already far behind schedule, listeners. We must move on now to the next issue that was published, or at least in the proper chronology, New Mutants 15, which of course I like because it has Shadow King, though I don't think everything about it was good. What do you guys think?
It was fun enough.
Yeah. I thought it was very funny when Scout was like, I was bred I was cloned as a brainwashed assassin or something like that, right? It's like, oh yes, I have the exact same origin story as Laura and even Wolverine, and like it's funny to hear that. I mean, later on the issue made some jokes about it, so it wasn't entirely like unaware.
Yeah, no, I liked her. I didn't know she had a new code name. Did I miss that?
Scout?
Yeah, I guess they're opting for Scout over Honey Badger because I guess that's their logic. It's like nobody's gonna take her seriously if her name's Honey Badger. She's the teen girl clone sidekick of young female clone Wolverine. No one is ever going to take Gabby seriously.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Keep it Honey Badger.
Say that she can be. Look, she also like she's a like literal child. Like she's allowed to be the sort of like cute, like kind of like comic-y character. It's fine if she's Honey Badger. I don't see an issue with it at all. I guess another point I was going to bring up about this issue is, there's a lot of Wolfsbane stuff in this, and Rain gets a lot of development. So maybe the two of you should fill me in on this, because I was very unfamiliar with a lot of the lore here.
I'm a big fan of Wolfsbane. almost no idea what
Oh
they're
God.
talking about.
Okay, I'm a fucking try. So here we go. In the most condensed fashion that I can think to break this down. Okay, so once again, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a trend. We are picking up with where a character was last seen at the end of Peter David's last X Factor run, which would have wrapped up, circa 2014, 2015? So yeah, we're looking at, a minute ago when we last had... Okay, so at the end of the previous volume of X Factor, back during the wild everyone is Satan in hell conclusion, Reigns, as guardian werewolf god Antichrist baby, was killed by the then soulless strong guy to steal the throne of the underworld.
Mm-hmm. And
You've already lost me. You've already
yeah,
lost
more context won't help. You just kind of have to read it for yourself.
Well, what about
I'll look into it.
the page that sort of fills you in on this visually shows the character Tyr being killed by a strong guy. It also shows what's her name, that supervillain from Midgard, from Asgard, like controlling the mind of Tyr. What's that?
Yeah, again, at the very end of the last X Factor, which was the last time that a lot of these characters who are now running around at the Dawn of X really got much in the way of action. Yeah, Wolfsbane's baby turns out to be some kind of demon child of prophecy for control over the underworld, and in addition to rapidly aging into some kind of demonic antichrist thing, in a battle between, let's see who was there. Hela was there. I want to say Hades was there. Mephisto, Satana, hell people. X Factor literally went to hell and everyone was there. This is around the same time that Siren becomes the Morrigan. That's just kind of how things were doing. And strong guy who had previously lost his soul in a Layla Miller-related resurrection incident, just decided that he was going to nip everything in the bud, plunge a trident through his friend's kid, and use his newfound powers as the king of hell to bring Monet back from the dead.
And Hela is Cate Blanchett's character from Thor Ragnarok, right?
Yes. She's
okay.
She's the Asgardian goddess of death, the Norse mythological ruler of Niflheim, the underworld, and she shows up in X Factor with a bunch of other black magic people towards the end of the run as it's really getting crazy.
Because what that page made me wonder is, like, does this go all the way back to the late 80s Asgardian crossover that New Mutants was involved in, which may have involved Hela or not, I don't know, or is it all more recent? Because, like, we're talking about a grown child here, so how long was that in development? When you say rapid aging, it sounds like it all happened in Peter David's run.
Yeah, she actually got knocked up in X-Force, that same run where she eats her dad. Then she shows up preggers in X Factor. Doesn't mention the dad eating or, hooking up with an Asgardian werewolf god.
Oh, I remember that now, yeah.
Tries to pass the kid off as Richter's for a minute. Mm-hmm. That doesn't get very far. Mm-hmm. And yeah, by the time by the time she pops, we're in full apocalypse mode, like literally, since there are demon lords and hell unleashed and what.
All right.
Wait, I'm confused now. I have a question about Rain's sexuality. I was under the assumption that she was gay. is she bisexual?
She
Rain
definitely.
previously canonically has had romantic relationships with a variety of unavailable and unsuitable men. Let's see, who has she
Right.
crushed on? Doug, Richter, Havoc. Yeah, it's not a good list. So if at this point she's decided to give in to the 80s Claremontian potential for female bisexuality that was always there, uh, good for her. It's probably a move in the right direction.
I remember
Right.
I remember the sort of tryst or fling with the werewolf god now, and I remember it being like, it was less of a relationship and more of just like an intense, passionate love affair. Because he like dies, right? He like dies very soon. I forget why, but this is all to like fill you in, listeners. This is why we're here. We got 30, 50
To help
years
us
of
best we can.
yeah.
I probably should have refreshed by looking at a wiki somewhere on Rain, because I read that whole run start to finish, but it was a couple of years ago, and as you can tell, things got a little wild. Uh,
They do.
I'm not surprised they didn't even try to summarize it over much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
This
like
issue.
the like splash page that has these like callbacks in it. It does an okay enough job at filling me in terms of what I have to know just to remember or to, I guess, understand the rest of this issue. It was fine. I guess like from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the kind of book that you just sort of have to read for it to make sense, right? Because it's like with a lot of superhero comics, it isn't like ongoing thing. If you were to give someone who's completely uninitiated like a plot summary, it just sounds like word salad, right?
Yeah, and Peter David is the king of old school superhero soap operetics.
Yeah, we
It's
can't.
very, there's just so many overlapping storylines going on at once, any one of which sounds completely bonkers, and by the end of the run they were all colliding with one another in the weirdest way possible. So this is what you got.
We can't impugn Peter David. I mean, David is an absolute king. I would say he
Yeah,
dropped his crown, but he didn't. He's always been wearing it. His Star Trek comics are great. He wrote a very funny parody fantasy novel, and yeah, everything he's written I think is really good. So,
I'm not even sure if I'm not even sure like how many Peter David books I've read as compared to other writers I've read. But that being said, I've never read a Peter David issue that was in any way bad.
right.
So I guess like some positive things about this issue. Back when Nolan and I were working for Comics First, like sometimes in podcasts we would have this like litmus test, like, do you feel like the characters are being written in a way where you could imagine yourself like sitting in a room next to them? I think this is something this book does really well, and we got the party scene by the end. We got a lot of like interaction, especially between Rain and Danny and a couple other characters, Karma as well. It's just like it actually feels like you're sitting in on like a heartfelt conversation between like a group of friends who've known each other for a couple of years, who've been through a lot of stuff together, and look, like just very honest like conversations about, okay, well, we've been through really dark shit and now we're doing better, obviously, but us still feeling bad doesn't mean that we haven't made progress, like that sort of stuff. It's just all of those scenes I really liked.
I feel like 2 issues into this new incarnation of New Mutants, the only one of our Dawn of X launch titles to have gone through not 1 but 2 changes of creative team. I do
Right.
really like the sort of 80s summer camp slasher movie atmosphere that this
Yeah,
book seems
I
to
can
be
see that for
cultivating.
sure. I'm kind of curious to see where the Shadow King stuff is gonna go.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I like that he's sort of using Mirage's like discomfort with her body as a way to disrupt the social order and the ritual of the crucible. I think that has like good
Right.
directions that it's going in. But we simply must move on.
It's true. So, whew. Yeah, good issue, fun issue, picking up some dangling character threads and spending some time with our favorite New Mutants. So, yeah, good issue. Moving on to, yeah, what's next? Excalibur or Wolverine?
Excalibur's next. I thought it was very good. I was very pleased with Excalibur. I was hoping it would all be in this alternate reality in which Betsy is Queen of England, and only some of it was, but the stuff in there was really fun, I thought.
Yeah, all of the scenes, I didn't really care for the Pete Wisdom stuff at all, if I'm gonna be honest. All the scenes in the like parallel universe place were absolutely great because it's you know, Betsy dealing with her complicated relationship with Quanon, Psylocke, and it's just a lot of good stuff. We got some great interactions in there, of course, with Warren. It's good. I liked it a lot. And then, actually, one thing she brought up is that, whenever she was together with Warren, she was in Quanon's body, which I didn't really think about before, but I guess it's technically true, right?
Yeah, the yeah, because Archangel and Psylocke were together for the better part of the 90s up through, yeah, into the second year of Remender's Uncanny X-Force, off and on. But yeah, for the better part of 2 decades, those being the decades in which Betsy was in Quanon's body, which it's interesting to see the way that's played with our, re-Britanized Elizabeth Braddock here interacting with both A. Warren Worthington III, who's not her Warren Worthington III, and A. Quanon, who does not have the same history with Betsy that our Quanon does, although by the end of the issue, she doesn't like her either.
Yeah.
Understandably, I think. She's like, she doesn't trust her, right?
Yeah, she's some rando from another dimension who, starts asking weird questions, saying cryptic things, despite the fact that both of them were warned explicitly. Just don't talk about the differences between realities. You're not gonna like what you get, and sure enough, they don't.
I guess like one thing that's bothering me is I feel like we don't really get like a good explanation of how she even ended up in that place.
No.
Because last we saw her, she was like shattered to pieces, right?
Yeah, well, that's like a visual device, right? Or I'm sure it's what it really looks like to them, but it's just part of the moving between planes, right? That could happen in all kinds of different ways.
No, for sure. I guess it would have just been great to get some explanation of why this specifically happened. It just seems kind of random.
We might get there because
Yeah,
I
maybe.
do have a feeling that our Lady of the Lake, her arm clad in the purest shimmering samite at the end just there, also isn't our Betsy.
Oh, so more.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
It could be like sliders, like they just keep like hopping between realities, never finding their way home.
Yeah, maybe this is Queen Elizabeth III since she's missing too.
Maybe. Yeah. We're not clear on whether things are happening at the same time. Like Elizabeth shows up here and then later Betsy comes back and they switch places, or who knows.
Yeah, having ourselves something of a cross-time caper, as it were.
Oh, indeed. I liked Pete Wisdom in this issue. I liked learning why he hasn't come to Krakoa and what his sort of problem with it is. I think calling it a Margaritaville and being disgusted by people trying to put lays on his neck is hilarious.
Yeah, he does react with horror being approached by a mutant child with flowers. It's clear that
that was funny.
Yeah, absolutely nothing on Krakoa is Pete Wisdom's shtick being a, cigarette-eating Warren Ellis cliche.
Yeah, like a Londoner through and through, right? He wants his, like, rainy, bleak, dense city, not this sunny bullshit.
If John Constantine were a mutant and done.
Yep, and done.
Kind of, yeah. I feel like he's not as interesting as John Constantine.
No, he's not. And listeners who've read the original Alan Moore run of Swamp Thing will all agree that's where John Constantine comes from. If you haven't read it, we recommend it very highly.
Yeah, that and a whole host of classic Hellblazer comics are now all available on DC Universe Infinite, their new comics reading app platform, which just came out last week, and I can plug here because Marvel Disney Daddy isn't paying me not to.
Yeah, that would be nice to get paid to plug it. Maybe if we ever get to our 16th regular listener, we can also get a sponsorship from DC.
That'd be awesome. Well, now that this has nothing to do with this issue, but now that we're on the topic of DC, I just want to quickly remind you that we have less than 50 days to go for the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Oh, I cannot wait. I think it's...
# Justice for Justice League.
It's beyond the purview of this podcast to have a whole episode on that, but we'll definitely have some things to say about it.
No, we can do it. We can do whatever we want. Fuck it.
Yeah, if you want a Justice League episode, listeners, you let us know on Twitter at S4GY Podcast, the number 4, and we will deliver. We will put ourselves.
We should do a live
gauntlet.
commentary track.
Like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment, like you put it on at the same time.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. All right, you're here for you witnessed the beginning of history live.
We're committed now.
Yeah,
gonna have to do it.
Mm-hmm. But it's got
everything.
The only reason I'm skeptical of that idea is that it's gonna have to be like 4 to 5 hours, right?
It is gonna have to be 4. I think exactly 4 hours long.
Oh god,
that's a real project.
What did I get us into?
Woof.
But sorry, I didn't want to distract us too much. Do we have anything to add on Excalibur?
I think it's covered. Clan Aqaba is back. They're still similar to how they were.
Yeah, I got Brexit witches are back in the house because no one demanded it.
Yeah.
But hey, at least that is picking up. We know who these people are. That was kind of a thing, and there definitely are unanswered questions as far as how Captain Britain and the all-new, all-American Excalibur relate to Britain these days. So, fair enough. But moving from Twisted Diseased Island Nation to Twisted Diseased Island Nation, Wolverine issue 9, Madripoor and such, I guess.
Yeah, a nice conceit for an issue, I think, like an auction heist, James Bondian sort of situation. I liked the people who were at the auction. Kingpin's a cool inclusion. Cultists, that was all pretty interesting, I thought.
We got the kids, the Hellfire Club kids.
Of course, yeah.
The frickin' Kingpin is there.
Yeah. They must be
and Dolores from X-Desk.
Yeah, the CIA lady is there, rendering it quite similar in some ways to the South Korea scene in Black Panther, where it's also like a luxurious Asian setting in which a deal must be overturned and the CIA is involving themselves, though they don't really get involved. Maybe they will in the next issue.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen Superhuman auction with a bunch of supervillains bidding on mad super science stuff once or twice before. Christina Strain's Generation X Volume 2 makes use of that.
I have some positive things to say about this issue. I thought the art was great once again. And I especially liked some of the way that the paneling was being played with. So we have a couple pages on this where it's like a 16 panel grid,
Yes.
and there's a pretty nice contrast between, some panels that add up to what looks almost like just one splash page big panel, and then in like what do you call it, a complementary color in like a complementary color, you got like some other like setting or thing that's being, or some other scene that's being explored at the same time. I feel like like playing around with paneling like that, and then of course like in the color department there was a pretty nice touch, and I think this issue was well paced and really good looking. I guess like I didn't care as much for the auction stuff, and like thematically what it's getting at is we've talked about that stuff like before on the podcast. It's just not too interesting to me personally, like in a Wolverine book, I guess.
I mean, I like the direction in general that they've gone, where humans are obsessed with mutants instead of being like I don't like the old stereotype of the like Christian fundamentalists who hate mutants for some reason. I like this much better, where humans tend toward like the worship of beings more powerful than them, and that worship isn't necessarily something that is good for the worshipped, but that it just makes a little more sense to me.
It's a bit more nuanced, but it's also been done before. Like Grant Morrison did that in their run on X-Men.
Yeah.
Very early on, like in the early odds.
For sure. Yeah. That was a sort of like a corporate neoliberal thing where it's like people want to be mutants, and so there's this like shady corporation making them into mutants. And this is more of a kind of like mystical thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it concludes with like, of course, they discover Wolverine. They use the gauntlets of that guy who's Magneton.
Was it just Magnetic Man?
Magnetic Man.
It may have been that straightforward.
Yeah, to like grab him, which was cool, and then the Masashi Miyamoto thing being their sort of like trigger word, or their like safe word. I'm into that. I like it.
Their safe word.
Yeah, their safe word.
There's one weird panel where
ships have sailed.
Like one of the like security guards just like pulls some green shit out of Wolverine's ear.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was like his like communication line with Krakoan, some like organic
gotcha.
technology. Yeah.
Which admittedly probably shouldn't be something that is visibly sticking out of your ear in such a way that someone could casually snatch out and squish.
Yeah, I guess that's why I was confused.
Back to the drawing board on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess they want it to be like a sort of earpiece of a Secret Service agent, right? Like that kind of theme.
I thought that panel was kind of hilarious though, like him saying like I got a bit of an earwax problem.
Yeah.
I have a this may be kind of disgusting for our listeners to hear, but I have a bit of an earwax problem myself. So this was kind of like a nice like reaction meme panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, representation for those with earwax disability. We need that in comics.
I'm so glad I'm back in Germany now, because when I was living in the States, this is gonna be like a 1 minute rant, but
take it there.
So I have this earwax problem where I have to go to like an ENT like every 3 months, and like the ENTs in Germany, they have this like, it's almost like it's like a vacuum cleaner they can use for your ear canal. Mm-hmm. This is so weird. But anyway, so the campus like health services people I met at WCSU, and all of them were great people. they didn't have that type of equipment. So what they did instead was just like try and flush it out with like just a bunch of water, which works
Saline,
as well,
probably.
I guess. But you know, like
Yeah.
the problem I had then was that I got like an ear infection.
Oh.
And they misdiagnosed me for the type of ear infection it was. So I just took like the wrong medication for like a week. Then I had to go to like what's the
Like a
what's the name for like an
emergency-
emergency clinic? It wasn't like
that's what it's called.
it-
Emergency care, emergency clinic.
yeah, that sort of stuff. It wasn't like an ER thing, but it was like an
Dr.
emergency
Box.
clinic. And
It's
then I had
the-
to wait like 2 months for like an ENT appointment, where it turned out it was like yet another like ear infection. It was so bad, and I couldn't even know it. And you remember this back when we were staying at our friend's place.
Yeah.
I just like couldn't hear on one ear for like a month. It was just so wild.
Yeah, it's American healthcare is shit. It's absolute shit. It's good not to be here for sure. We're happy for you that you're not here.
No, I mean I would love to be there for other reasons, of course, but that aspect specifically. I guess like if the ENT just had like that device specifically that they use on me, I don't know what it's called, but all right, this is it. I've talked
right,
about my earwaves
yeah.
for long enough now. I'm sorry.
I could
That's
talk
like-
about mine, but we'll spare you. We'll spare you. It's
You heard it here first, gentle listeners. Earwax.
earwax.
Too real.
Too real. We are at the main event in some sense, an issue
Yes,
of actual
yes.
X-Men, a very
A
contained
flagship
issue.
title.
Yeah, not really a continuation of anything before or leading into anything afterward. A serious one-shot.
Yeah, with guest art by Brett Booth this this one takes us on balls out extraterrestrial action adventure as Storm, Jean, and Scotty in a body condom revisit the 90s sci-fi excess of the Jim Lee years. Plus, those New Mutants that we left in space.
Yeah,
Mostly Smasher because the boys get stuck in the bath.
they do. I think Brett Booth not only deserves credit for this wonderful recreation of the art from yesteryear, but also Adelso Corona and Sonny Go, I'm guessing it's pronounced, or Go, who like worked on the coloring and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And
The
inking, yeah.
Not just visually, but also thematically. It's a lot like the kind of X-Men that the animated series in the 90s was based on,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
Shi'ar
Even
Empire
the
calls for
like the
help.
like space villain guy, he's so 90s with like he has like the Rob Liefeld shoulder pads and
Yeah, he's got wild shoulder pads, weird things on his back, a crazy face.
And he is yet another rebel against intergalactic order who wields a giant hammer. A purposefully unoriginal villain in some ways, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
The
It's
Mall
very
of
much supposed to be
Stygia.
like a callback to that for sure. We got also what we probably should mention is the outfits that Scott and Jean are rocking. These are, if I'm not mistaken, these are X Factor Volume 1 outfits, right?
Yep, original X Factor uniforms, which suit them very well in this issue. It's fun seeing them in these 80s, very, very early tip of the 90s, just before they got their iconic Jim Lee animated series redesigns. I guess they were feeling a little retro, which definitely suited the mood of this one, which, we've got several splash pages that are basically just aliens being awesome, which is, to be fair, a big part of why anyone reads comic books. Being real, it's like, so the galactic economic collapse, relevant, first mentioned in Sword, is picked up here as our crisis that the X-Men intervene in is the disappearance, the abduction of the Shi'ar's childlike empress, Xandra. And, okay, so the abductors turn out to be Stygians,
Which, what is...
Maul-wielding which should be as mindlessly straightforward as it sounds, except this being 2021, I'm sorely tempted to unpack what are the implications of this issue's story? What is Hickman saying here socially? Because I don't know.
I think I do know, but before that, what are Stygians? And not only that, but what are Wraiths and Chimelians? These are also mentioned in the...
Chimelians. We see a Chimelian on the first page. They're like the weirdly sinuous horse furry people. They first showed up in Louise Simonson's Power Pack back in the 80s. Wraiths. Wraiths are dire wraiths, the enemies of the Galadorian Space Knights that we saw in Cable. And Stygians, I think we've seen a couple of Shi'ar Super Guardians with the black starlight look that our Stygians are sporting here. I think it means that they're supposed to be stand-ins for the Legion of Superheroes Starboy. High Gravity is mentioned, so that would make sense.
But are they some kind of like underclass of the Shi'ar Empire? I've never heard of them, if so.
We've seen that the Shi'ar have a number of peoples incorporated under their imperialistic regime.
Sure.
You'll notice that most of the Imperial Super Guardians don't look like Shi'ar because they're not. They're superpowered representatives of other species, like the Stygians, whom the Shi'ar have taken under their protection.
Yeah. A vibe that I get from this can be summed up as Star Trek Nemesis, which, if anyone's seen it, does a very bad job it's an incredibly terrible movie of presenting this idea that like all along the Romulan Empire has had this underclass, and you never saw it as a viewer, a consumer of the media franchise, because they're so like hidden as an underclass. They do like the mining and crap like that, and they're called Remans, which is a dumb name for a Romulan underclass. And they sort of like rebel to some extent in Star Trek Nemesis. And for anything to resemble that is a mistake, I think. Like that should be like avoided with arms outstretched. Like, you know, I don't ever fault Hickman's world building. I think it's really far beyond what most comics writers accomplish. But in this specific case, it's I don't like it so much.
Yeah, in a world where we do have the regime which we were until recently living under, in which various factions of demonstrators could be... It's hard to pick a good fit for who is Xandra supposed to be? Is she Trump? Is she Baron?
Okay.
If so, how are we supposed to feel sorry for her? Who are the Stygians?
She's Biden, because she's like, I've only been in power for so long. Like, what can I do?
Oh, true. That's true. I didn't even think about
Fair
that.
enough. Fair enough.
No, I don't think that's purposeful, but it just came to my mind.
I mean, I would draw the allegory a little wider. Like, this is a massive civilization. Its hierarchies represent not the rulers of America or any particular country, but the kind of like world order of Earth, like the kind of like neoliberal capitalist world order.
For sure.
The fact that it's a financial collapse specifically, like it never says, oh, Null has been sending latex dragons all across the galaxy and that's the reason for the collapse. It just says like financial collapse, right? And
but
yeah, go on.
It's just I agree with all of that. I guess on top of that, the Shia Empire is also like, is it like a straight up? Because I'm kind of confused by that. Is it like a straight up monarchy, or is it like a parliamentary monarchy like the UK?
Both. Think of like Star Wars, maybe. Like, it's probably inspired by Dune originally. The idea that like each planet has a representative rather than, or maybe two, rather than like dukedoms having representatives, as in the Holy Roman Empire or other systems where like administrative units have representatives. But like the Holy Roman Empire or many other empires, Rome, for instance, there's a kind of, or the United States for that matter, there's a kind of a tension between the legislative body representing various constituents, vassal groups, and the executive, the like
Right.
the head of state and their family, their own employees and servants. I think when we read what was it, Fall of Kings, Reign of Kings, the
Oh
one
no, I know which book
War
you
of
mean.
Kings.
When we
War
read-
War of Kings,
yeah.
right?
when we read War of Kings, I think that was a very fortuitous choice because we learned a lot about this stuff that I didn't already know, and it also played on the same tension between like constituent groups and the imperial center, something I'm used to thinking
Gotcha.
about as an historian in training, but that most people probably don't think about.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about it to that extent. I guess I'm just curious about the exact amount of power that Xandra has. I feel like it would influence like how I think about the political situation here to some extent. Because I do think it's weird that the X-Men would just travel across the entire galaxy to sim for this like
For this ego.
royal family. It's just especially because like how many of other regions from this royal family have already fucked up so much stuff for the X-Men. It's kind of weird. It's
Well,
just
I mean,
it's a weird sort of alliance.
It's
Yeah,
doubly
the
weird.
Shi'ar-
It's doubly weird that who they ask to come save them is Jean Grey, right? Who who like has killed so many of them before, but they've done it a million times. Ask Jean Grey to come save them. That's like hardly new, and it's part of the callback in a way that they're performing in this issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a lot of
since-
things that don't make sense about it. I think it makes zero sense that 3 X-Men and Smasher go down to rescue the Empress alone, and that only after they try do they summon an actual like well-funded body of Imperial soldiers, and that
Yeah.
for some reason Cannonball has to summon them. Why? I don't know why. And that like writing Imperial politics is hard, and some people have done it very well. I think in Dune it's done very well. I think in Babylon 5 by J. Michael Straczynski it's done very well. You can never. It's always a mistake when you let it be too much about like small groups and individuals. You're forgetting how much like capital is invested in any given aspect of such a major struggle, and I think when it manages to hang together right until the end, and then there's like this resolution that is just so dumb. I think it's so dumb. Like Hickman, I love you, but to say that like the financial collapse similar to that caused by the COVID pandemic is leading to like one mogul like Sunspot buying up everything, that makes perfect sense, right? But then to say that can then be used to enfranchise the rebellious underclass, and then all of a sudden that, as you asked, Marius, that Xandra has so much power after all that she can just like force them to I don't know, to accept some kind of like additional freedom and enfranchisement and make their rebel into a diplomat. It's just, I see the nuance that he's going for. It makes no sense to me at all, though.
It doesn't to me either, and it's weird because so many previous issues of Hickman's X-Men have been like pretty anti-capitalist, I would say, and he's definitely been alluding to that vaguely on his Twitter as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, in the context of that, it's extra weird and it's extra confusing. The political shenanigans going on here. It's just, and it's, especially like the making the rebel a politician thing, especially because it sounds so sinister too. But we're supposed to, from the way it's being framed here, we're supposed to think of it as a good thing.
Yeah, we are. I mean,
Also, isn't this the second time that Hickman has had someone try to kill Xandra, and then Xandra turns around and is like, "You work for me now."
yeah.
Wait, when did that happen before?
Deathbird.
In New Mutants, in the first New Mutants arc, because
Oh.
Oracle was conspiring
Oh, right.
against everybody.
That's 3 times: Deathbird, Oracle, and now Ur. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's like a good strategy, I guess. But it's like the most generous I could be would be to say that even this resolution is part of the '90s throwback, like in that era of the triumph of liberalism over socialism.
The end of history.
Yeah, exactly. This was seen as a natural sort of resolution for I guess who would it have been at that time, like Bill Gates or someone, to just like save everyone. It's or even fucking Donald Trump. It could have been back then, but
Yes,
yeah,
That's not happening
capitalism will
now.
save us. Just hold your breath on that one.
yeah,
I guess like one more thing that kind of bothered me about it is that Xandra, when she was introduced just a couple of years ago, which in comic book time would be just a couple months ago, she was introduced in Mr. and Mrs. X, which was a book about the freshly married Rogue and Gambit, and she was just like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she just like hatched out of like an egg or something in that first story arc. She was like a very new, very young, very inexperienced character, and of course she was like a sort of like a damsel in distress / like MacGuffin-y type of character in that book. In the context of that story, I guess that made sense. It seems now that she's like I don't want to say competent leader, but she's what seems to like others around her as like a competent enough leader, and she's like very like authoritative in her speech.
Yeah.
And it's I guess I would have liked to see a more inexperienced Sandra.
yeah. Well, maybe it's Deathbird who is the source of the experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Unless there's any other pressing things to add about this issue, I think we got to stop. We've gone very long here.
Wrap
It's
it up.
it's already getting too long. I wanted to add one more thing about the X-Men vote thing. I think it's one criticism we had of that was that we were kind of unsure if you needed like a Marvel account to do it, because like whenever you go on that website and you click the person you want to vote for, it takes you to an info page, so it's kind of unclear. Like, did I vote for her now or didn't I? Like, did it not work? But in general, I think it's a great thing for them to do, and it's really like energizing the community. Like all the X-Men groups I'm part of are creating so many like election memes, and it's just just like the way that Hoxpox re-energized the community to a huge extent. I feel like this is doing the same thing. I would like to see more of those things.
So, certainly, folks, if you are still hearing this within the window, do not forget to vote for your favorite X-Man for the all-new, all-undecided Hickman X-Men to be revealed in June, I want to say. And until next time, school kids, Krakoa is for all mutants, including... Sorry, one moment. Was it? Including Strife.
Okay.
Oh god.
No clones allowed, but maybe Strife gets an exception. Who knows? If so, that's sexist because Madeline Pryor doesn't.
I never meant to call you when you sorrow. I never meant to call you